sent like Sarah Smith today. Yeah, definitely.
Was this the day they got moved from the spring?
Hang out until Q&A.
I mean, I'll hang out here.
Okay.
I'll just sit up front. So,
Yes, sir. All right. Good evening, everyone. Number one, thank you for being here. I know there's a lot going on in Atlanta, from the Braves game to this Gotham era that we're living in. And I really expected to see more people, but I'm glad that you all have made it. I'm glad that we have so many representatives from the district, and all these people that you see here, they've been my day ones. So when the incident happened, they were here on the spot for me, either a phone call or like some people like Miss Goodrum, she came. She came straight to us. I made a phone call. Miss Melanie was busy, she couldn't make it, and Miss Goodrum was able to be here. Chief had people come out. I had help from engagement, which is Keisha Copeland, and I definitely had a lot of help from Miss Dorna Werberlin, who is our communications person. And David York has been a good support. Chandrea Lane, she's the person that everyone's been asking about as far as rescheduling the fingerprinting and background checks. And then we also have Mr. Keith Subas, who's done many of our, he's done evaluations, he's come through, he's looked at the safety, he's given us pointers, and we've taken many of his recommendations as well. And then of course, Chief has been there throughout. So that's who you see around the room tonight. And we also have Keisha Copeland from Family Engagement. All right, so let me control this, sorry. So the agenda for tonight, welcome, norm, safety improvement, survey, Q&A. And our purpose is to listen to and address safety concerns from the community. And these are norms for the evening. Share the air, so we'll work to ensure everyone has an opportunity to share or ask questions. Respect the time, we will move along in a way that ensures everyone's time is valued. Appreciate perspectives, we will value everyone's unique experience and expertise. Maintain our focus, we will try to be free from distractions and listen to whoever's speaking. And so on this point tonight, I want to make sure that we are focused on safety. I know that there are a lot of other things that happened as a result of the incident, but we're focusing on safety tonight. Ms. Portee is planning a town hall for 5th grade to address some of the 5th grade concerns. And then finally, look forward, we will intentionally listen to inform short-term and long-term actions, and you will see that this will be included in tonight. So why are we here? This is the one part of the night that I'm really gonna read. So, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here, and I'm gonna start with the story because I always do. Because I want you to understand where I'm coming from. About 17 years ago, I got a phone call that shook my entire life. We had just, you know how in the movies you sit down and like everything is crystal clear when the moment happened? That was the moment for me. And so we had just sat down in church, all the kids were ready, and I got a phone call. And the phone call was that my daughter had been shot in the face. And my daughter lives in Montgomery. We jumped in the car, and if you know the distance from Atlanta to Montgomery, we made it in under 2 hours to Montgomery. I spoke to a police officer friend, and he said, listen, you're not going to be ready for what you're going to see, no matter how much I explain it to you. And it was a 12 gauge. Her best friend's cousin was in the room playing with her uncle's gun that was in the Navy. and the gun went off through the door, which probably saved her life. She was sitting talking face to face with her best friend's sister, but she caught everything. The little sister didn't get hit at all. It went through a door. It was totally unintentional. But just thinking about that call and how it made me feel, and knowing that every single day I come in here and I'm in charge of 900 children, that is of the utmost importance to me, because I would never want to make that call to any of you. And I would never want to be on the receiving end of that call again, because you know my son, my last one, 18, he's in Grady, he's a senior in Grady. And so safety is of the utmost importance to me. And so when we go to the incident itself, I want to say that it was completely unexpected, and we were equally as shocked as everyone else. There was nothing that we could have done to prepare for this. We had ethics training, we have a handbook, we signed that we're going to follow the rules of conduct and the ethics that are in the handbook. So we would have never expected this. But we are in a climate of fear, and we're in a climate of just terror in many cases. So I received a call from Ms. Portier that there was an employee that possibly had a weapon in school. I immediately called APSPD, district support, which was Shelley Goodrum, and communications as I drove from the PC to the IC to meet the officer. So I was actually at the PC that day and I drove over. I sat with the employee until APSPD arrived a few minutes later. From there, APSPD took over the investigation. And Ms. Portier and I called the parents of the students that were direct witnesses to the situation. So all of this is at play as the police are investigating, because I've heard from some parents, well, what took you guys so long? I want you to know that there's crisis communications, and when we have crisis communications, there is a protocol that we must follow. It can't be Mr. Hudson just sends it out willy-nilly. There's checks and balances that go on during that time. So I sat with the employee until he came, till the police came. APSPD took over the investigation. Ms. Portier and I called the parents, as I said before. Those parents were actually called before the children arrived home so we could share what they reported to us. I want to be clear, I only shared what the children reported to us. We did not share the results of the investigation because the investigation was ongoing, and as it is to this day. And so when the initial investigation concluded that evening, we sent out our first communication to the community, and I believe that was around five-ish. So we're not hiding anything. He has rights, the employee has rights, and that's handled in the court system. As far as we're concerned in the school, we conducted an investigation, we turned it over to the police from there, we turned it over to HR, and not everything else is in their hands. So the whole thing, you know, back in the days, they used to say, yeah, fire that teacher. Here's the reality, I don't fire anyone. I don't even hire anyone. I make a recommendation, and then based on the recommendation, HR either approves or disapproves of my choice, okay? So I'd like to talk about some of the things that we have in place, because that was a major concern. And remember, all of these things are in place because we are working to keep the children safe. So these things that are already in place, these weren't reactive. I want to say that these were not reactive steps, these were proactive steps. These were done before the situation happened. So all of our teachers have Centegix badges. Centegix, if you heard of, you know, the incident, unfortunate incident one, the reason why they said the police were so able to act so quickly was because they had the Centegix badges. We all carry them. You press it 3 times, it alerts an administrator in the building, so it could be something, a child is having anaphylactic shock out on the playground. 3 times, we know to run out there, we see what's going on, we take it from there. 8 times, it calls the cavalry. Everyone is coming out, from SWAT to APSPD to local law enforcement if necessary. We're gonna have all the help that we need in order to handle it. Every teacher has one. And I know there's some questions on the Q&A that addresses substitutes. That has been forwarded and we're waiting on answer, but that is coming soon. Security vestibules. So as you see in both buildings, you cannot simply walk into the building anymore. Those vestibules are there. There's no access into the building unless someone allows you in, and that's after you scan in with your ID, and that allows you to go on to the next level. And for the most part, we are escorting people in the building now. So when teachers come, parents come, or if someone comes to see a teacher, we're working to escort them when we have the manpower. And even when we don't, they're calling me, they're calling Ms. Middlebrook so that we can escort those people up to the classroom. Ballistic film. That is on certain parts of the building, and keeping in mind that this is a public forum. So we don't want to say, well, ballistic film is here, but it's not there. So just keep in mind that we do have ballistic film on the building, and it's covering the windows. It is bullet, what's the word you use? Bullet resistant and shatter resistant. Those are the two things that the ballistic film does. All of these people that you see here, this happened in the summer in July. We all did first aid training. So that's us with our dummy in the middle. We pushed out a survey to everyone. That was kind of post the shooting, but we did one, not the shooting, sorry, post the incident. And so we wanted to know what parents' feelings are, kind of maybe do a shift with how we spend our $45,000, because we wanted to hear from parents to see, okay, what do you guys really want? What's important? And we'll talk about the results of the survey. We only had about 66 responses. When I made this, we're up to 74, but I'm going to leave it open and we'll talk about what's there. We've had numerous safety audits. Keith Sumas has done some safety audits with us last year, this year. We looked at the playgrounds in particular. His recommendations are being taken by facilities, so you will see fences going up, 6 feet fences on the IC playground, and soon enough you will see them going up on the PC playground with a crash bar, because we can't keep the children locked in case of emergency, so there'll be a crash bar to push out, and then I think teachers can use their regular classrooms to open the fence. So that's some of the improvements that you'll see soon as well. Policy review. So after the incident, I did resend the policy out, even though we all take the ethics training and we're responsible for the ethics training. Sent the policy back out again to say, hey, no weapons allowed on campus. This is the rule. Email, handbook, policy. And doors locked at all times. And it says next to it, exterior lockdown. So our permanent position is exterior lockdown with the exception that visitors can come in. But at any time of the day that we come by, we check teachers' doors randomly, or if we go in to observe. When we go in to observe, the door needs to be locked. If we see a magnet up, because we were so accustomed to having the magnets in the door, we've been taking the magnets. So we're trying to make sure that the way that we move at all times is in the situation of exterior lockdown. So in the event something happens or we have to lock down the school, the teachers don't have to do anything. Their door should already be closed, it should already be locked. Because think about your hand, if you hear something tragic going on, you're like shaking trying to get that. So we don't want them to even worry about that. And that is a district-wide policy now, that all doors are locked at all times, so that they don't have to even worry about that. If in the event, and I hope it never happens, but in the event we have to position ourselves into a hard interior lockdown, all they have to do is move to the back of the room. Look on the hallway, grabbing the kids out, move to the back of the room. So upcoming improvements: fencing at PC, fencing at IC, as I mentioned, additional training. We did see from the survey that there is some room for improvement in some areas of training, in particular recognizing the signs of a child that maybe would like to bring a gun to school or something like that. We haven't had that much training in that area, but that's something where we have an opportunity. We've asked for additional cameras, in particular at the PC. We need some more coverage in the PC. I think we're pretty well covered here. We could always use some more, but PC is the area that needs a little bit more attention. And then the school security grant, the governor has approved that for each year. So we started off with 45,000 this year, but year after year, we should be getting that same amount of money. So the results from the survey. So with our 66, and let me say with our 66, you know our parents. So those 66 had like 5 or 6 suggestions each, some of them. So the numbers are going to jive. So SRO was the number 1. Right now, metal detectors is in 2nd place. 3rd is training. 4th is additional ballistic film. The next one is additional fencing. Exterior doors locked, which we do now. No side door usage, which will be another point of training for our staff to just say, hey, let's just use the doors, the main doors for the building, not the doors that alarm, because then it does make you numb to it. And after a while, you start hearing the alarm and it's just the alarm again. So that's another point of training for our staff. A safety assessment, which we have had a safety assessment. We've had a major safety assessment for the whole district, then we have local ones, and then they are looking to have a vendor to do the entire district again, and that's coming up. Panic buttons, that's the strategic badges. So we already have that in place. Clear book bags, now, and when we get down here, these are all 2 people each, okay? More cameras, and then mental health screenings, which we do have a new mental health provider as of today. They're trying to come to Fall Festival to maybe share with parents that they're available to the staff. So that's another win for us. So these are things that the parents are looking for right now. And staff took this as well. And so staff and parents took it, but we had 66 responses. We had 70 for us of today. But what I would like you to know for those that are on Zoom and those that are in the room that have not taken the survey, if you scan it or just take a picture of tinyaps.com, // SRS Safety 2024, then you will be able to continue that survey and add your input. And the more input we get, the better we can plan for future years. Yes, ma'am.
Has it been discussed along with this too? The IC feels very protected when you go in, but the PC is very open. And I know you mentioned fencing on the outside, but has it been discussed to potentially have a single entrance and maybe reroute how you can get in, you can access the PC? Even with the side steps, like there's a lot of ways to get onto the campus.
So as of right now, the recommendation was the 6-foot fence. And to also take, if you look at the front in the circle, to take the fence from the side of the building all the way against the wall so that we won't have access. And I think that limits a lot of access to the building, but we will look at it, we're continually looking to improve. And so as we take that time to look and see what's gonna make it safer, then we'll have to make those moves, especially with the funding, when the funding comes available.
And just to clarify, the 6-foot fence though, that visibly, it's not gonna make it look like is it nice fencing? Like, is it gonna be a prison? Like, what is that?
So Mr. Sumas might be able to answer that. I have not seen what it looks like.
Okay.
But anyone would you like to answer that?
No, I mean, perfectly fine. It'll look nice.
Oh. And so I'll be honest with you. And this one is coming from, this one I'm, running up the chain. I am not comfortable with metal detectors for children, but we'll have to see what's the best route for the children for the safety of the students. It's just not one of those things that I think is gonna help. Our best defense against anything gun-related, violence-related, the best defense is the children in the building. That's who informed us of what happened that day. That's who keeps us informed of things that happen. That's who we get calls on the weekends. hey, this is going on, that's going on because a child has told their parent. And it could be something as simple as there's arguing in the girls chat group or the boys chat group, but we get a lot of our information, the majority of our information from our children. Our counselor, Ms. Lewis, talks to the children about telling, like how good it is and how important it is to tell when you see something that's wrong. And that's training that happens throughout the year. So even when they went to Ms. Portee, one of the things that the students said is, we knew we had to do this because this is what Ms. Lewis teaches us to do. So you have parents, you know, I want you to understand that's the importance of SEL as well, because that's some of the things that they talk about in social emotional learning, knowing when it's appropriate to tell, knowing what an appropriate step is, and making sure that you do tell when you see something. So our best defense, and that's not just here, that has been my career. At Sutton, I used to call it my little group of informers, because they gave me all the information that I needed before it happened. I was able to stop so many things just because of the children. So just keep that in mind as you hear us talk about SEL and things of that nature. Well, I went kind of quickly. And we were supposed to hand, did you hand out index cards as they came in? How many do we have? Oh, they're here? All right. Chief? No, we're just answering questions at this point. And so just being reminded of our norms. And let's go for the questions. It's our understanding that other North Atlanta elementary schools use the lobby scanning device as level 2 clearance. Okay.
You got somebody here that can speak. You got the professional.
Good afternoon. I'm Chandra Lane, the Program Director for Safety. The Visitors Management System is for visitors. It's just doing a name check, a sex offender check on the person, which you would know. People have other records, I would say, rather than just sex offenders. So it's just a record for us to know who's number one in the building and for us to get an idea of who's in the building. So it's not for volunteers. So the schools have been directed, and just so you would know, on October 9th, my team will be out at Sarah Smith and we'll be taking volunteers. We'll be fingerprinting level 3 volunteers, our teachers for renewals. So if you would take note of that, we're here, we're coming to the school for our volunteers, but it's for our level 2 volunteers and level 3 volunteers background check. But the visitors management system is not for volunteers, it's for visitors in the school, just a record check of who's in the building.
Thank you. The PC scanning device is constantly down. Is this happening at other schools? How can we get support with this? You're talking about the Raptor machines? Well, I don't know if it's happening at other schools.
I know that there was a recent update. Sometimes when those updates get pushed out, we have issues at the school level. We have to make sure we dispatch folks from IT. That's what we're talking about, the visitor management machine being down at times, Raptor. But again, when updates get pushed out, we have to work with IT, try to get IT to make sure we have someone come out to the school and take a look at the devices and make sure that the system is updated appropriately. So that's typically what happens with that. The most recent issue we had was that.
Okay. Who monitors cameras on campus? That's an event occurrence. So when events happen, that's when we go to the camera. Sometimes if I'm just sitting in the office, which is rarely, I will have the cameras up. We may have the cameras up and look at various things, but really we use the cameras when there's a national event because we're not sitting in the office all day. We're in classrooms a lot, moving around the building, at lunch, at recess, and things of that nature. How are PCIC fencing being funded? I don't know.
Dedim
My
anlamıyorum.
hope is,
Sen anlıyor musun ya?
well, I don't want to tell you what my hope is. Well, I'll tell you what my hope is. That's what I've been begging for, but we'll see what happens. Did you state the 45,000 grant is annual? Yes, and it is annual. How are the safety recommendations being made based on what data? So would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I would like to get a better understanding of that question. You say, can you help me with that? Whoever wrote the question.
I have that. So when you make like the recommendation, that based on the school, times, geography, how do you?
So Keith can answer that question. Professional.
So what you said, good evening. All the things that you mentioned are correct. Just for this particular school, it is based on geography, the lay of the land, those type of things. And also the number of students, and of course, as Principal Hudson mentioned, it all has to be fire code compliant. So you can't trap anyone. You have to look at the number of exits in the back, if we're talking about the rear, obviously. But also, you have to look at what are those access points throughout the school itself. So it's a combination of different things that we look at when we do assessments. You are correct. I've been over here probably I've been here in the district now for 3 years, and I know I've been over here at least 5 or 6 times, more than some other schools. So there are a lot of good things going on here. And I'll be honest with you, I could just probably spend a good 10, 15 minutes in this one gymnasium pointing out things. I do get somewhat picky on certain things depending on what the school is. But, and again, it's not to beat up the school, but as Principal Hudson mentioned, it's for not only safety and security of the students, but for the staff as well. So yeah, I can find all kinds of different things in here. But again, you try to level it out. But going back to your question as far as fencing, it's a combination of several things.
Identify yourself.
I'm sorry, Keith Sumas, Emergency Management Coordinator, Atlanta Public Schools.
Okay, how are the safety? The PC has a large number of seemingly disproportionate exterior doors. Is there a way that some of these can be sealed, removed? It seems like it's just a temptation to prop open. So we can't do that because we have to exit the building for fire safety, and we have to do that quickly. So the more exits that we have to get out, the better. I know some of you may have seen that movie, Lean on Me. You remember what the principal got in trouble for? He chained the doors, and that was a wrap for him. So no, we can't do that, but we can train our staff and talk about which doors we use during the day, which we have started to do, and especially
If you want more or anything else,
those doors that have alarms on it, so we won't become
gonna be working much longer,
to them ringing all the time.
getting it sorted through.
Thank you.
No.
This one's for you, Chief. How do you handle threats in our area? The recent Winder shooting, there were many copycat threats. If there are threats from our area, if they are legitimate, are they arrested? If
I know,
there's a
we're
threat,
working late. It's your birthday, don't
do
they know
we
it's your
go into
birthday?
lockdown?
I don't care.
Hey, someone's not on mute.
First question, when it comes to threats, depending upon what it is, we have a team of investigators who will look into those threats. If it gets to a point where the information, you think about social media and trying to track down somebody on social media, it can be challenging. I'll say about 50% of the time we've been able to locate people. And other times we haven't been able to. But we'll reach out to our partners if we get to a point where we just don't have the resources or not able to find any information. We'll reach out to our partners and ask them. And there have been several times we went to FBI and they couldn't find it. So we will investigate it. We'll find the person when we do. My charge has been put them in jail. They don't need to spend the night at home resting. after they do something like that. They need to be in jail. As a matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we had unfortunately had a kid who called the school and said they're gonna shoot up the school. And we were able to find him and we put him in jail. And that's what we do when you do that. You do that, you're gonna go to jail. If we can find you, you're gonna go to jail. There's another part of the question.
Basically, if there's a threat, we go into lockdown.
Yeah, if you're threatened, no. So this is one of the things that we really try to find out immediately after we get that threat. Is it credible? We look at certain things, and I can't share all the variables in that. We look at certain things and we see certain characteristics of threats, and we recognize not right away, but we recognize after some time if it's something we need to take action for. And in the case of a lot of these social media threats, we realize right away that they were not right away. We realized they were not credible at some point, although there were a lot of them. So when we talk about these threats, we get these threats, we really try not to lock down. We try not to take a reaction to that because there's a lot of times that's what people want. It's like calling in a bomb threat, for example. We have that quite often. Someone calls in a bomb threat. Well, they want us to evacuate. They want to do something to disrupt the learning. So we try to do everything we can to not disrupt the learning.
And thank you. And if we have something that we feel is credible, then we do go into a lockdown without panicking the students. So we don't, right after Winder, there were a lot of threats, but there were some days that there was widespread. We just brought the children in, told them indoor recess. We locked the doors, we checked all the doors, but we didn't go into, this is a lockdown, because we don't, especially after an incident like that, we don't want the children to panic. So you did hear about one day, and I think I sent a communication that evening around 7 or 8 to say, hey, this is what happened that day. But it was not a lockdown, but we just did it out of an abundance of caution. Okay, so we appreciate the ID scanner device. How will we monitor if a visitor or staff member is carrying a gun without metal detectors? First, I want to say that was an anomaly. We do sign that we will not do that, and most people want their jobs. Because when that happens, then you instantly go into, there are repercussions for that. And so that was an anomaly, but we'll have to talk about what are the next steps. And right now, if you look at education and the things that we're asking of teachers, we're asking a lot of them, and I don't want to demoralize them more by having them go through a search every single day for an anomaly, but that's something that's above my head because I believe that has to be district-wide and consistent. And so I'll set that up. We set that question up because that has come up before. Chief, did you have anything to add to that? Okay, so this is one for you again. Could the SRO be an Atlanta officer, or does it have to be a district officer, and what's the difference?
There's a big difference between Atlanta police and us. So number one, with us, we are all police officers. We've done everything that every other police officer you can imagine have done. It's just we decided to work in schools. The level of training that we provide our officers is way above and beyond what a regular police officer would get. We get restorative practices, crisis intervention team training. Crisis intervention team training is a class that's taught to help us recognize disorders. So when we're dealing with kids, we can recognize that there's something else going on, we deal with it differently. We give them mental health first aid, positive behavior interventions, restorative practices, SEL. So we program them with a lot of information. And I used to be a trainer in the police academy. So when I was in the police academy, I trained officers to be warriors, not guardians. So we're having to shift the officers we have into being guardians, but they can change gears when they need to, because we train them to respond to active shooters. They can change gears and be warriors, but most of our job is focused on educating our kids and interacting with them in a way so that when something's going on, they'll be comfortable talking to us and sharing with us. So there's a big difference when it comes to the Atlanta police officer and us. And then some of the kids will tell you too. I've had some high school kids tell me, hey, look, those guys in the street, they don't care about us, but we know what the officers here do. So nothing against APD, nothing at all against them. But it is very different. Can they do it? Yes, but I am not a proponent of that. If they did, I would rather them receive the training that we provide before we put them in the classroom, before we put them in school. And every officer gets that training. And every officer that comes on board, they're in training 3 to 4 weeks before they even go into the school and by themselves to work with kids. So that's pretty much it.
And I will say that I've been in the district when we used to use APD, and our officers are incredible compared to APD. Not a knock on APD, but just the way that they're with the children, the way that they're able to talk to them. They're like, they're almost like second parents. They give them guidance when they do wrong things. I used to have them walk with me and actually, hey, sit and talk with this child with me. Or they may do something like, you know what? I'll say, hey, I've been having an issue with this child. Okay, well, look here, son. What do you want to be when you grow up? A police officer? Okay, so every Friday, if they behave, they receive Chick-fil-A from this officer that used to work with me. So they have that, it's almost like a perfect combination of a teacher and an officer that has kindness and compassion that knows how to work with the students. All right, looking at the time. I see the superintendent is asking for school resource officers. How will that request happen? Is this something voted on at APS budget meeting?
Yes, the superintendent did ask us for information about having an SRO at every elementary school. We provided him with the cost that would take, and he'll make that recommendation to the board, I believe. The one thing that I want to prepare everyone for is the realities of hiring someone to be a police officer. It doesn't happen overnight. And our process in and of itself takes a little time because we are very particular about who we bring on board. So it's not just, I said, got a police officer, he wants to work for us, you can start tomorrow. We have to do a psychological evaluation, a physical agility test, a medical test. We go and look at their files. We go to their previous agencies, if it's more than one, regardless of where it is, and we look at their files, see what's in their files to make sure we have the right person on board. It's not perfect, but I think we've done a pretty good job of screening people who come on board. Remember, it's your most valuable asset. We don't want anybody with a gun around their kids. I'm gonna stretch a little bit on this because I know there was questions about security guards. I am totally against an armed security guard. Here, the armed security guard, nothing against any particular profession, but frankly, security guards are more than likely people who are not able to be police officers. Do you want somebody who's a security guard with a gun with your kids? Now, there may be there's some groups out there that do a very good job. I know proud military folks who are doing some security work. That's a whole different ballgame. But when we talk about putting these guys, these men and women in our schools, I am totally against it. Totally against it. So, there we have it.
Related question. Who is the best group to contact so APS funds SROs in elementary schools? School board, mayor, budget committee?
All of those.
And your local legislator. What help do you need from parents, SFEF, PTO, as it pertains to safety? Money. But we also need you to advocate with those same people to say, hey, this is something that we desire. The state superintendent has said that he wants an SRO in every school. But you hear the challenges of that as we talk. So it's going to happen, I believe, but the more we work together, the better that we can do to make that happen. I also want to mention that on the survey that I put out, there was a question about who wants to meet and discuss safety. That was a lot of people. There was about 67 surveys, and exactly 2/3 said yes. So we're looking at, I guess, about 44 people. There's also a safety committee that Ms. Portee and Ms. Herron run, but that's only for 2 or 3 parents. But we would welcome the 2 or 3 that would like to be on that. And then we'll also have a meeting with us to like a broader group to talk about safety and strategically planning what our next steps are. Since I can always tell who wrote this question. Since the 5th grade teacher isn't being replaced, can that position be used as a SRO? That is going to be a major discussion because there was already a budget shortfall. We were 34 students under, and that cost $181,000. And so some of the hard decisions we had to make, like losing our clerk in the front office, was a result of that. So this may help us to recoup, but we have to discuss it. We still have our $45,000 as of now because they haven't charged us for the fencing yet. I need someone to give us a plug and help us out. But that's a discussion that I have to have more than likely with the team, and I'd also like to talk to the GO team about it as well. Okay, speaking of safety, how or when can we get a camera for speeding like Morris Brandon?
So the process for getting a camera is not necessarily a request. Our goal is to have a camera in every school zone in the district. But the challenge has been the roads have to be certified by the state to be able to run radar. And when we started this, we found out that there were a lot of roads that had not been certified. So we're going through the process of getting those roads certified. It's not a matter of unwilling to do it, right? It's not a matter of, can we get our school first or second? It's just a matter of once they make that done, in the process of doing it now, once they get that done, we can start selecting those schools again and getting the program up and going for those schools. So it's a little process, just a process, yes. That'll be fine. I think Atlanta Department of Transportation and GDOT, those two are actually involved. So GDOT ultimately will make the decision on whether or not the road is approved for running regularly.
If you remember when I was making a lot of fuss last year about being mindful of traffic and slowing down, we did, I spoke to Robert Patterson, if any of you are familiar with him, from North Buckhead Civic Association, and we started working together, and that was the same thing you told me about the roads being certified. So that's not something new that we're working on. We started that work last year. Yes, ma'am.
That will be, depending upon the type of road. If it's a city road, it's going to be Atlanta Department of Transportation. If it's a state route, it's Georgia Department of Transportation. And you're talking about the Hawks and signals. So push the button, white flash, cars are supposed to stop. Right. Thank you.
Have you put in the Atlanta 311 ticket? You have to put in the Atlanta 311 ticket.
311 ticket, we could definitely put it on.
Please do. That's a good thing.
Is there an interim step like on YU that like right before you get to Stratford Road, they have this like little trailer that flashes if you go over the speed limit. It doesn't necessarily have to be far behind the light, but maybe it drives awareness.
If it has radar, it cannot be done unless it's approved to be done on that road. That'll be the challenge. I could talk with Atlanta, maybe have a car sit there, or maybe even Sergeant Price, he's the sergeant for this area. Every once in a while, I can have a car just sit there with a lights on and see what happens. Maybe it'll slow traffic down. So we can do that every once in a while. Yeah.
Like if it's already happened.
Right. So every so often we have to do it, have to be certified, and evidently it hasn't been certified.
How do we know how the Camp 45,000 safety grant is being spent? So we spoke with GO team, we spoke with the staff, and we made some decisions last year. But because we didn't receive the money yet, and then this happened, we're shifting. And so the goal is to use the 45,000 and maybe share with another school for now to get an SRO until we get approved, but we're waiting to see if that gets approved. So we have not spent the money. I don't want to be, keep repeating the same thing. Because the fencing was expensive, it was about 18,000. So if we can, use that money towards an SRO, I'm sure. Then we would only have to fundraise another 55,000 or so if we needed to do that, or we could share with another school. So there's some realities also with the hiring, how long that may take, but that's just some of the things that we have to go through. If there's an online threat, are teachers made aware, or do you only share with them based on how credible you think it is? So if it comes from the officers and it's credible, because that's who lets me know if it's credible or not, then we share with the teachers, hey, there've been threats made in the area. We're gonna have indoor recess today, just out of an abundance of caution. But anything that's going to panic them, if it's not worth sharing it because it's not really credible, then I try not to just widespread share that. But if it's something that's credible, I want them to know so that they can be on high alert as well. All right, so now to the online questions.
Hey, wash your hands, ready? How was fun? All right, let's see.
How serious is the school about getting a full-time security officer? A full-time resource officer, we're very serious about it. How hard would this be to acquire, and what may parents do to help get the support? So we did talk about legislators, talking at the different meetings, letting it be known that this is something that we need for the school, working together with the school, because one thing I want to say to you is, parents, you make your decisions, you know what you want, but you still have to come through me so that I can go and say, yes, this is what I'm behind, because they're going to come to me and say, Hudson, do you want this? And then I'll say, well, I haven't heard anything about this from the parents. So we really need to get the information from you, what you're advocating for. I need to share with you what the repercussions are of any decisions that we may make, whether it's budgetary or the time it may take or anything like that. We need to work together to make that happen, but we definitely need to come together to make that happen so that when they come to me and say, hey, is this something that you're really looking at? I can fully support, fully go ahead and say, yes, this is something that I discussed with my community, and this is something that we want to do. Yes.
Is it possible does somebody have these email addresses, or did somebody help put them together?
I've captured them on the Google Sheet, the Google survey. So the phone numbers, the names, and the emails, I've captured all of them on the Google survey.
Okay, and then you're gonna send that survey?
Oh, the people to talk to?
Right, maybe we can put a list and start sending them.
Yeah, I don't have that. Yes, is the question.
We'll get that.
Yes.
There is an SRO on this campus, but in the information we sent to the superintendent, we counted every site, not just school. So it will be one here and the other campus if it is.
Okay, will there be a makeup day for the voluntary background checks? And the answer is yes, October 9th. Thank you, October 9th. 7:30 a.m. to 12, correct? Okay. I'm sorry? 8 to 12. Okay, what are other North Atlanta schools doing for safety?
The standard is pretty much the same for every school. We have a layered approach. We have a lot of things in place. Say Something Anonymous reporting system. We have video cameras over 7,000, and not only monitored by us, but also by APD and the Video Integration Center. We have SROs for the elementary schools specifically. We just recently assigned one officer to 2 schools, so they'll be going back and forth between schools. Some of you may have heard that we've seen officers here and there all over the place. So we're doing that. We are a lot of things. It's just so many things that we're doing. I mean, I could be here all night listing out all the things that we do with this management system. Special training for officers. Every officer has a tourniquet. Every officer has Narcan. Every officer is trained in crisis intervention team, restorative practices. So a number of things that we're doing that we have in place. I look at it as a layered approach. And if one thing doesn't catch it, maybe the other thing will. And hopefully we can, if we work together with the community, with the parents, with the students, remember safety is just not responsibility of the police, everybody's responsibility. We need everybody to work together. Share with us when you see issues or hear issues. Do they say something wrong? So we can get ahead of stuff. But that's everything. It's pretty much standard for every school, with the exception of an officer assigned to the elementary school. So that's pretty much the same.
Thank you. Can you describe video coverage for the PC, external and internal coverage, and what improvements are being considered for your earlier comment? So I don't care to, talking about it exposes our weaknesses. So I will say that we just need to have a little bit more coverage. And I'll have to leave it at that because I don't want to expose what our weaknesses are, especially in a public forum like this. The next one, this is a very good point. I think it's important to make, I'm sorry, this is fine. So I think it's important to make the part we can play as parents, and that safely storing our firearms in our own homes, in our vehicles is very important. That's true. Amen. And you know what? Not only that, we did have a group of students last year for exhibition. That was their project about safely storing firearms, and they put posters up around the school. They got with an organization and got some information and shared that with other students and told them to share it with their parents. So that's part of being an IB school with an action and going forth and doing it. Yes, ma'am. Okay, give me a second. What about the vestibules? How realistic is that? Is it to get those installed? Our vestibules are here and they are secure. You cannot get through. Well, I won't say that. It's almost annoying some days because you have to badge in, badge out. But you cannot get into the school without going through the vestibule and being approved to come through.
Just mention one thing. It's not, again, don't get so focused on one thing that it takes.
It's too much right now. Don't ask me for anything else at the moment. But we can deal with it later.
Along with the human eyes, picking up the phone. The whole idea behind this was not necessarily to stop, but to slow down enough, time enough for us to get there, so we can deal with it. So don't look at, I wouldn't necessarily be concerned about perfection. If it slows them down and we get the notification out, we're coming. We're coming, Atlanta's coming, Fulton Sheriff, GSP. I know it, I've seen it, we'll be there, we'll be on the way.
Thank you. And then the last question, Ms. Middlebrooks, you have some questions in the, okay. Okay. So question for Mr. Hudson, what's the policy procedure as it pertains to making sure safety protocols are followed and understood for non-certified staff and or substitutes in the building? Are safety protocols directions posted in every room? For instance, if there's an emergency and a regular staff member is here. So typically what happens, well, number one, certified and uncertified staff, everyone in the building follows the same protocol. So whether you're a paraprofessional or any other position, secretary, when we do our drills, everyone is involved in the drills except for the ones that are helping us with the counts. So we do have people that help us count the students to make sure that we are accurately counting the students. We also have people that sweep the building. So, for example, when we have a drill or a fire drill, you sweep the building and you're able to catch mistakes. And that's why we practice those things. One time I called a little boy in the bathroom. I said, sir, you didn't hear the fire alarm? No. So that's the kind of thing, but the teacher identified that student was missing with the car. And so that's what we want to see when we're doing drills, because they have cards that identify red, yellow, and green if they're missing a student or if they have an extra student. or so forth, and we use that code. Now, to the question about substitutes. Substitutes have to take the regular training, but we don't do a particular protocol for subs at the building because we have so many different subs. So that might be an area for us to look at. There are posters that let you know what our strategics badges when you see the lights flashing. Those are strategics lights, and that's up in all the rooms for the teachers to know, and or not in all the rooms, but around various points in the building where the teachers can know what's going on when an alert happens. And so that may be an area for us to look into and make sure that we shore that up when we have substitutes in the building. But they do leave, every single classroom has an emergency bag in the room. And the subs know what those are. So they're basically in the same place in each room. So they know to grab it. They have the bags. They take that out with them to every drill when we practice our drills. Yes, ma'am. Oh, no, I just thought you were looking at it. Okay, you said that. Hold on 1 second. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can you talk about the training, like if there is an emergency, the training you've done with like APD or Fulton County and how you all coordinate to work together?
Right, so in the metro area, the law enforcement agencies use the same type of training when it comes to responding to active shootings. I won't get into specifics, but the same tactics, the same type of responses to active shooters. We have done some training with Atlanta Police and Atlanta Fire to be able to see how we operate with each other in environments like that. We've also done tabletop exercises. So tabletop exercises is basically, just like it says, it's not a real exercise, but it helps us to recognize some of the challenges we might have when it comes to responding together in incidents like that. So being specific is a very, we train our officers to go to the threat. I don't know if that's what you're asking for. If there's a shooter, we want you to go to the shooter. Because we know if we get to the shooter, we put pressure on the shooter, the chances of them hurting someone else is reduced immensely. So our goal is to get to the shooter at the end of the day. Same as any other police department that will be involved. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, you sure?
And then the other question is more like, because I do know some people want like non-armed security and all that, and I personally think that's a risk. You mentioned some of the risks in terms of like an armed non-APS PD, but can you talk about the risks in having a non-armed?
Well, the non-armed, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a risk, but you can't expect them to respond to that shooting. They don't have the ability to do that. So they're just eyes at that. And you have enough, I believe you have quite a few teachers on board or staff members on board who can see the same thing and send the same message when there's an issue. But having an extra body is always good. You can have someone walking around in the parking lot, maybe watching for things outside. So a lot of times when things happen, someone's outside, they see someone approaching with a gun, they can maybe, notify the staff or use the crisis alert with the Centege's button and lock the school down. So there are a lot of ways you can use an unarmed person. I wouldn't look at that as more of a challenge as it would having somebody with a gun who is not trained by us, who we don't know their history. It's a lot of things with that. So we don't know if most security guards are not doing psychological evaluations. They're probably not doing physical or medical evaluations. So there's a lot of things with that I look at and think about the difference between having a sworn officer versus a security.
Thank you. Okay, this question, we are grateful for the many safety measures in place for keeping everyone safe from outside threats. I think the main question we were hoping to learn more about today was the plan for threats from inside the building, as was the case in this incident. And so that's where we talk about our interior or exterior lockdown, where all the classrooms are always locked. And so if you notice what happened at Winder, unfortunately, the child left, went and got his gun, came back to the classroom he left, but the door was locked. So then he just went down the hallway to the next locked door. So the things that we have in place already, the next unlocked door rather. So the things that we have in place already are the things that are going to protect us. The doors being locked, making sure that everyone has their strategics badges. So if something happens, we can alert using the anonymous reporting system. So when someone has an issue, they can let the staff know. Being mindful about who we have in the building and knowing who they are at all times. And just really, one of the things that I didn't mention that I really do want to mention is building good relationships with the children, because the children let us know. The children would not allow us, if they know of something, they really say, hey, Mr. Hudson, I think this kid has this. I mean, like, it was a lighter once. It was a lighter, and that was serious business for our students. They're like, this kid has a lighter, and show it to me in the bathroom. But just that relationship with us and the students is really what's important that helps us to grow and build and have a better safety network. Did you want to say anything else? Because I know there's so many different things that we're doing.
Just repeating again, safety is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the police, it's all of us. If you see something, say something. You can do it anonymously. You can pick up the phone and call the principal and not do it anonymously. But one of the best thing that we can do is if we hear it, if we see it, we say something about it so we can act. I think that's the best thing we can do.
Thank you. And does the system have or will invest in a silent notification system if there's an emergency in the school? And we do have a silent system. It's the strategic badges, which were in place. I want to say that these were in place since last year. So we didn't just start with strategics. We had strategics before it was popular. Or well, it might have been popular, but we had it before other districts started talking about it. And we've had it since last year, and all of our staff is trained on how to use them. What else do we have? I'm sorry. And we're winding down to the end of time. Is there discussion of dedicated fundraising efforts towards the SRO? There are some discussions, some happening underground, some happening face to face. But let's bring everything together so that we'll all be on the same page. And a few more. Okay, yes, ma'am. So the discussion has shifted from grant money to the state superintendent saying that there should be an SRO in every building. So let's see how that works, because that may take the grant away and fund us with an SRO, or it may mean we still get an SRO and then get $45,000 for improving safety. I don't know how that's going to work yet and the budgetary concerns of the state, but that's the way the state is moving right now. Give 1 second. How possible? Okay, so we answered that already. So once again, the question is, what is the date to come to the ICYMI gain level 2-3 clearance? October 9th, 8 to 12. Clear backpacks will be for parents, teachers, and students. We haven't made a decision on clear backpacks. That was just one of the suggestions out of 66. 2 people said yes to that. And we discussed internal threats. Ms. Ignatowski?
Are there, any efforts to like drills, you're talking about all the layers, drills, that they direct to get through all of the layers and then lesson learned?
So I can say, can I say? Yeah. So we just had one come from Department of Homeland Security, and they gave us our lessons learned. Keith Sumas actually reviewed that with me. And so one of the things is we need more fencing. Okay, so that was a very important thing that came out of that, along with some other things that immediately we shared with the staff. And then we reiterated it. First, we put it in a positive way. Hey, make sure you're doing this, this, and that. And then when I met with them face to face, I said, okay, here's why I said, let's make sure we do this, this, and that, because these are the areas where we need to shore up our safety.
We've requested we can do things internally, but we have requested.
So she wanted to know if there's a cadence, this is for the people online, to the amount of security or the amount of checks that we have?
So we have requested the Department of Homeland Security to do these more frequently, but they also have requests throughout the state. We try to do some things internally. Keith and I talked about that. Try to get some folks internally to try to do it ourselves. But so yes, we are trying to make that.
And so how does the school handle threats to staff and students? If the threat is made by a student, is there a zero tolerance policy? In addition, who is monitoring the teachers and what dangers they bring into the school? And so, as far as students go, and Ms. Portie and Mr. Champion, Ms. Herring, and myself, we get reports all the time. We know what happens in the group chats. We know who's threatening who after school. And when we get when we get that type of information, we act on it immediately. So the students tell, and when the students tell, we react. And even in every situation, when there's something that they know about, they let us know and they act on it. Yes, ma'am. And so, in short, Ms. Portie said it's also they involve parents that really monitor their students' activity online. They come in and let us know what's going on. And as far as the teachers go, that was an anomaly, but we will look at our policies and procedures, including everything that we do with our ethics. We take ethics training every year. But as we know in life, if everyone followed ethics training, then this world would be a better place. Right, we wouldn't need it every year too. But unfortunately, there's some people that break it, and when they break it, those consequences are laid out. And when those consequences are laid out, there's some people that learn by touching the stove, and then there are others that learn by seeing what happens when the stove gets touched. And that's what we're hoping for. And I think that was the last question. 1 second. Was there anything else that I didn't answer, Ms. Middlebrooks? How will
Did you have baseball yesterday? Shower.
How will it be decided what new safety precautions will we adopt? It's still going to be based on input from APSPD, input from the different safety walks that we've had, and we'll take a look from there. So we're not making quick decisions. Everything that we've done proactively already is there for the safety for the children. And the ones that we're looking at doing next on the previous slide, that's also going to help us to make a decision. But we're constantly reviewing our plans. We're constantly practicing, and when we see holes and places where we need to fill in or places where we need to do better, then we do better. When we know better, we do better. $200,000.
Yeah, about $115,000. It's $100,000 for fringe and benefits, salary, and then another $15,000 to outfit the office. So that $15,000 is one-time cost.
And when you come in, I'm gonna bring you the trash. It needs to come in.
That's 115.
One officer, so 230,000. Inflation. Vote. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Gilbert, grab your seat.
About, at the longest I've seen, a couple of months. But the other challenge is, so when we start our screening process, and people apply, that's the other part, is getting people to apply. Because our major target are officers who are already certified. So we can bring them in, we can prepare them for that. So we have one officer who we brought in, we sent it to the police academy. That takes a long time. We're talking about 11 weeks before they're able to get into school, before they even able to get back from training. But trying to find officers who are interested. This is not one of the fields that people are interested in doing. And then working with kids is another challenge on top of that. So That's the biggest part. It's not necessary. Once we get them started in the process, as long as they qualify, as long as they meet qualifications. I mean, about 8 weeks at the longest we can get them on board.
All right, that concludes our time. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that came out and to reiterate that the safety of our children and the safety of our staff is of utmost importance to me. It's something that's serious to me. I shared my story with you at the beginning, and I shared that to let you know I know what the shock is, because in that moment, just like in the movies, her entire life from her being born to me seeing her in a coffin was in my head. And I don't want to ever experience that again, especially knowing that you've placed your trust in me to make sure that these children are going to be fine. And just know that hopefully I never have to put that to the test, but just know that I'm here to make sure that these children are safe every single day. Mr. Champion, Ms. Portee, Ms. Herron, and the staff, that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure the children are safe, because once they feel safe, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once they feel safe and their basic needs are met, then they can learn. And so that's what we want to do, that's what we want to be, and that's what we're here for. So to the parents that signed up to join the team, let's join the team, let's get together, and let's head in one direction together. All the different directions we can't do it, we gotta head in one direction together. And so I thank you for coming out. Appreciate your time, appreciate you all that are on Zoom, and I especially appreciate all of the district people. And let me say this also. Now, there's bad things that happen, and then there are good things that come out of the bad. When I tell you, every department descended upon this school when that incident happened and put their arms around us and made sure we're safe and said, what do you need? Everyone. And I was talking to people, Chief and I were talking on Sunday morning after it happened as he was in the airport. And that's not the only time. Ms. Johnson was here to support, Ms. Goodrum was here to support. Ms. Wordland, oh my gosh, her team, did I say your name right? Her team has just been awesome as far as helping with communication, helping with support, making sure that, we made the right steps, that I didn't say too much, because I'm one of those people that will say everything. They helped me just tailor the message appropriately. Everyone from Mr. York to Keisha Copeland helping us talk about how to make the flow of this go. We had a lot of support, and we're still getting a lot of support. The questions being asked, what do you need? Facilities has been out a number of times to see and look at what we need and what we can improve. So it was a bad thing to happen, but it's also bringing a lot of help and attention to our school. So I'm thankful to APS and all of the support that we have. And I thank you all parents for everything that you did, because you all have been super supportive throughout all of this, bringing the hard questions, but the hard questions makes us better. And so I appreciate you all too. Thank you and have a good night. Robinson, what area do you cover? So this is Captain Robinson, I'm sorry. She's a captain over the department, so she's everywhere. Just wanted you to recognize her face, because a number of them have come through and patrolled the school as well. Chief Appleton was even here as a roving officer, even though he's not a roving officer. He came through and made sure that we were safe as well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.